Good evening and welcome to the Caledonia Township Planning Commission for July 7th, 2025. Call to order. Clement.
Here.
McLean. Here. Bradshaw.
Here.
Eberly.
Here.
Lindsay.
Here.
Cutler.
Here.
Curtis is also here. I need a motion for the consideration of the meeting agenda.
So moved. Support.
Motion by Eberly, support by Bradshaw. Any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Public comments. Anybody here for the brief public comment period up to 2 minutes? Seeing none, we will close the public comment period. Need a motion for the consideration of the meeting minutes for June 2nd, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by McLean, support by
Eberly.
Any changes? I wasn't here, so. All right, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from the June 2nd, 2025 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Inquiry of conflict of interest. Do we have any conflict of interest for any item on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we will move to the first item of business, item 6A, public hearing and consideration of a special land use and site plan for Drive and Shine vehicle wash establishment with oil change use at 6949 Broadmoor Avenue on parcel 412307276001. Use will occupy approximately 4 acres in the northeast corner of the parcel. Ms. Linnae.
All right, I'm just wondering if, Dennis, do you want to just put, I will speak first, but do you want to put the site plan up and that way it can go on the screen?
You're gonna have to tip your mic down so we can hear you.
All right, great. All right, the request before you is a special land use with site plan review for a car wash that includes a detailing and auto lube operation. You've seen the site plan before. They've made some modifications to the project. One of the big changes they made is they relocated the vacuums, which were along the front of the parcel facing Broadmoor, to the north side of the project area. That's an external vacuum area. So we reviewed this according to the special land use standards in section 16, as well as the site plan and the architectural standards. The review of the special land use, I can go through that quickly, but the first is that the use and the character and the nature of the use would not have adverse effects on adjoining lands. The adjoining lands are also zoned commercial. They're also in the M37 Broadmoor overlay, and they're also auto-oriented uses. In fact, this proposed use would connect to Circle K with an easement, an access easement that was designated for this type of connection, which is consistent with our overlay requirements. And you'll see that off of the north portion of the parcel, where some of the existing trees are located. In terms of traffic flow and circulation, the applicant has made some changes to traffic flow and also clarified some of the arrows and the access questions that we have had. But basically, vehicles enter the site through the north entrance. They have a choice as to whether they enter the detailing area or the car wash area, or whether they enter the further, I guess, the westernmost access route to hit the oil lube. So as they enter the car wash, per se, they first go through the car wash. So you'll see those 3 lanes that kind of merge into 1 lane, and then they go through the car wash chute. Thanks, Dennis. And then when they exit the car wash, they can either exit out to the access drive or they can turn left and then go back around and, no, I think you go back around there, yep. and then they can go into the interior detailing area. And that has vacuums inside and rags, and I'm guessing, mat cleaner, anything you need for the interior of the vehicle for cleaning it. Along the front, there was parking. They've also moved that parking, and the parking is now on the south side of the parcel, where the trash enclosure is located. Gosh, I'm breathing into that, my goodness. There's also the access drive that is proposed that parallels Broadmoor, that extends to what will be built south of this. We don't know what that is yet. However, one of the requirements is that they create kind of a separate parcel, or that they identify where their kind of area of impact and lot dimensions might be, because we see that lot area, but that access drive is kind of off of that lot at this point. They're also building the continuation of the pathway along Broadmoor, and then they've built a pedestrian connection into the site just south of that access drive that leads to an entrance door or a side door at the loop location. The traffic flow, so that is an overview of kind of the interior circulation of the project. I know that MDOT did request a traffic study in 2024. We haven't seen an update on that, so that question still remains today, and any condition of approval would be predicated on any requirement from MDOT and reviewing this project and agreeing to the location of the drives. The applicant, the standard for substantial adverse effect on public safety and emergency services, this is item C in the report. We did note that there's a 50-foot snow melt area at the exit of the car wash, that's in gray. And then we also measured approximately 500 feet of travel distance from the car wash to the exit at Broadmoor, which is certainly, I think, more surface area than we saw with a previous car wash request that we've reviewed. In terms of natural resources and natural features, there is significant topography and wetlands on the site. However, the applicant did receive an EGLE permit for the site disturbances that you see proposed on the project. I already mentioned the pedestrian route, so that standard is met. The township engineer reviewed this for drainage and water supply, so the applicant would have to comply with the conditions in that report. In terms of times of year and hours of operation, the applicant states that they would be open Monday through Saturday from 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Sundays from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. In terms of public facilities, the township engineer reviewed that element of the site plan. And then the consistency with our general development plan and zoning ordinance. We did note that it is generally consistent with that plan. The plan does anticipate service and commercial uses. We do also note, though, that that traffic study has not been complete. In terms of the specific standards for vehicle washes, all of those standards have been met. And then in terms of the site plan standards, I will go through the ones that I want to call attention to. The first would be the driveway, and that the driveway would need to meet the approval of MDOT and any traffic study that they request. In terms of the landscaping, we did note that the landscape plan was deficient, and given that there are, 5 exits, kind of garage doors that open out to Broadmoor, we recommended larger canopy trees because the canopy trees that the applicant was proposing were just columnar in shape. We also suggested perhaps berming, which is a requirement of our ordinance when you have parking in front. Granted, there is no parking in front, however, with the garage doors and the headlights, that berm would be ideal. And I think just today I received an updated landscape plan that you see here. Haven't had a chance to review it, but I do note that they're proposing a berm and have modified the landscape materials. So we're comfortable if the Planning Commission wants to include any condition that be reviewed for compliance with our ordinance. But they are working to improve that landscape buffer and create kind of a legitimate green belt along Broadmoor. Screening, there's a condition that any at-grade mechanicals be fully screened as a condition of approval and a condition of permitting. Lighting, I think the applicant has a response to that in terms of how lighting will be dimmed after hours. The dumpster enclosure meets the requirements of our ordinance. In terms of signage, we did note that there's quite a bit of signage on their architectural plans. And our condition that we're recommending is that signage meet the overlay ordinance, that be reviewed by our zoning administrator, Lois Deakins, and that the signage meet what our ordinance requires, and kind of nothing more than that. The reason for that is that our master plan speaks to limiting the signage on Broadmoor for the preservation of views, to minimize visual clutter and visual distractions on that corridor given the traffic speeds of Broadmoor. In terms of parking, the request meets the ordinance requirements. And when we get to the building and site amenities, we noted that the elevations, one of them is mislabeled. They don't meet our ordinance requirements in terms of the evergreen tinted glass. The glass is transparent, however, it is a hue of green, and we require clear transparent. They're also proposing CMU block, which if the block is utilized, it can't be larger than the standard brick size. Otherwise, the CMU needs to resemble decorative stone. They did provide these images, which to me continue to look like stone CMU block, just a different color and a rough edge. They don't, to me, read as limestone, nor are they the standard brick size. The other, on page 7, the other architectural item in C, in addition to the glass and the CMU block not meeting our ordinance, is the applicant providing a description of where the main entry of the building is, and how that main entry meets our requirement for entries of a building. It's a little bit confusing because the sidewalk and pedestrian connection leads to that side door of the lube operation, and I'm not seeing a clear entry to the building. The other is item E, which is the rooftop mechanicals. I did not see a plan that would show exactly what is planned on the rooftop of this use and whether any condensers or HVAC or other mechanicals would be visible from the street. And we do require that rooftop mechanicals be obscured from view. Item H, the blank walls, we did note that the south elevation does not meet the standard. There is not a pilaster every 40 feet. So that was a concern. So with that, we did include some conditions if the planning commission wishes to move forward with this that relate to the MDOT traffic study, that the lighting be dimmed after hours, the landscaping meet our ordinance, which I know the applicant is intending, that the mechanicals be screened, that signage comply with our overlay, that berming be provided, and again, they have provided that the architectural standards are met, including the building materials, clear glass, and that the blank walls are not facing roadways. And then our general conditions related to adherence to standards of the township engineer, the fire department, and other reviewing bodies. And that all local permits be secured prior to permitting and all fees be paid as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I know it's a public hearing.
We'll do the public hearing because that's gonna take all of 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Just hold there. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing for item 6A. If anybody would like to speak about 6A for the public hearing. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. All right, I will start off. So I'm assuming you have the memo from Ms. Linnae dated June 30, 2025, the township engineer, same date, and the fire department site plan review.
I have everything but the site plan review from the fire department, but I assume that we would be in compliance with that.
Yeah, it says rejected.
Haven't seen that yet.
Couple things that likely we're going to focus on is we have standards and we're not meeting the standards. We know it's not your first time here. Like the lighting, I know I said the last time, the ordinance clearly states has to be designed by an engineer and sealed, and yet here it is in front of us again, not designed or sealed by an engineer. It's designed by a lighting supplier. So that scratches my head why you would come back again without that complete when it was clearly noted the first time around. Secondly, I think we want to focus on, I think we're okay with the landscaping now. Is that correct, Ms. Linnae?
Yeah, I'd like to give it, I haven't reviewed it, but I do appreciate that they've worked on it and addressed the comments. We just have to verify.
So that leaves us with the architectural standards, probably another biggie for this commission to talk about. And does anybody have any other big items? The traffic study, I'd love to hear how MDOT has requested it, and we have yet not to see that. Anything else the commission wants to hear about?
I'd be curious, it doesn't look like you're detaining water for the access road, so that doesn't make sense to me. And just better understanding future development concepts for the site to the south and how the access drive might relate to that, and is where it's shown the best spot or not, depending on those concepts. And lastly, just confirming that the detention pond is sized for the future development to the south. Let's build it once and build it right and be done with it and leave it alone.
Anyone else?
I think the only question I had is we're showing construction on the property to the south that's not on the proposed property. Is that an easement? How do we accomplish that? Sidewalk and the drive there. I mean, if it doesn't work, then they've got to rework a lot of stuff.
My understand, so that's a proposed split. They own all of this currently.
Okay. So the property boundary is moot in that point, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
You got a question?
Yes, I have a question about the elevations that were just up on the screen shortly a while ago. I just want to confirm that west is west and south is south.
Not on our packet.
Thank you.
So the south elevation is the one that is specifically pointed out
Right, correct.
on that, which would be the bottom one.
And it's missing a door for where the sidewalk shows up, but that's not the right spot though.
The plans aren't coordinated.
The other item just that I noted that we want to put in our minutes too is that I did see a billboard on the property that didn't show up on the, any of the site plans as existing, so I wasn't sure what's happening with that billboard. But that would need to be perhaps a condition added related to something perhaps being done with that billboard.
Yeah, as long as you bring up signage, we're oversigned, so, just know that the amount of signage on the building and all that doesn't meet it, so if that's part of your deal, you may wanna talk to us about it now, but typically we don't allow any more than what's in the ordinance. So go for it.
Okay. Well, good evening. My name is Dennis Cole with Paradigm Design, 415 Leonard Street Northwest, Grand Rapids. So this is indeed our second time here, or third, depending on what you're counting. The last time around was as part of a PUD, and then we came back for the rezoning, and that was successful. So we're now looking at C2, as you indicated. As far as the issues to discuss, we can talk about each one of them. Maybe the main one to start with is the MDOT report. You had some question about that. It was indeed put forth in 2024 in June and submitted to MDOT. At that time, however, it showed the entry being directly into the site. In approximately that location. And it became clear from the comments that we received at that time from MDOT that would not be something that would be permissible. So we do intend to have a revised MDOT permit or MDOT report for their consideration, traffic impact study. And but we have discussed the location as shown with MDOT, and they have given some preliminary acceptance of that location due to its distance from the indirect left that's currently there. So that is the plan at this point. Traffic impact study will be provided and reviewed by MDOT, and certainly nothing will move forward until we have that acceptance from MDOT. As far as the main entry, you know, I guess I'd have to query exactly what that means for this type of a use. We've got several different you know, uses that are going on with the detailing, the car wash, the vacuuming, and also the oil change, as well as any pedestrian access. So we can certainly clarify that with planning and make sure that that's identified more clearly. Rooftop mechanicals will be fully screened. That's the intent. I think it may show up on some of the parapets, but clearly we would have that screened in accordance with the ordinances. Lighting certainly will be sealed by an engineer, and the lighting complies with the ordinances fully, with all the fixtures being downward faced. And as Lene pointed out, it will be on a timer, so you know, they will be dimmed after hours. You did see the landscaping of the berm, which grateful for Lene's willingness to take a look at that. We'll work through those details with her. One thing that we could note is, you know, the access drive, which originally went straight through to Circle K, we've adjusted because of the existing of the mature trees that are on the site, actually on Circle K's site. And there will be further discussions, obviously, with Circle K folks to coordinate that, but that's the intent at this point, to preserve a fair number of those as possible. And the access easement would kind of go along with that. Between architectural standards and signage, it certainly is Drive and Shine's intent to provide a quality product to Caledonia Township. This is not Drive and Shine's first installation within the state. They've got probably 25 to 30 of them in northern Indiana and also in the Kalamazoo area. They're pretty much of the same style. I think it's their intent to do what is shown. If there's some other discussion that can be had with regards to the architectural features, we can talk with staff about that. But at this point, they're showing what they believe to be a quality material choice, and that includes the green glass. I know it's been stated that may not comply because it's not transparent, and I think some of the pictures that I show you, the idea there was to show that does indeed provide a transparent feature. And the reason why it's green glass is actually more economical. It is good for the environment. It's solar control. It enhances energy efficiency. It absorbs UV, reduces cooling costs. And that has been utilized in their other facilities. And I think the intent of Drive and Shine is to continue the use of that green glass.
Just to clarify here. So that indoor space where the vacuuming and the two overhead doors on each end, that's basically, that's conditioned space,
Yes,
heating and cooled?
correct.
Okay.
Talking about that pretty much. That space there, Mr. Chair?
That's where the glass is, so.
Okay. The signage package that was provided as well is the desire of the applicant to provide, and realizing that it doesn't comply precisely with the ordinance, with the overlay ordinance at this point. The applicant would like to take that matter to the ZBA to have a discussion about that, feeling that the signage package that they have is necessary for the various movements that this site does entail. It's quite a bit of wayfinding that's necessary for the safety and the ability to do the various tasks that are part of this structure, and so that is the desire to have a discussion at that level.
I would have to say, when you put these huge signs up about oil change, interior clean, car wash, we're gonna see that once and know it. And there aren't that many people who are wet behind the ears who've never been in Caledonia before. We don't necessarily want to see that every time we drive by. And that's why the ordinance is written the way that it is to limit that level of over-information on signs.
Mm-hmm. So
I don't know how the rest of the commissioners feel about it, but we haven't given a lot of variance in that in the past, if at all.
I'm on the ZBA, so.
No, we don't allow variances for signage. It's through the special use, so it's at this body.
Okay.
And we do allow directional signage. We do have sign limits to that, but certainly lots of our auto-oriented businesses have directional signage on the site with arrows and, different ways of pointing people in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. And perhaps there are some ways that the applicant can look at modifying that, but at this point, I think their desire is to go with what's provided. And certainly there can be further discussion about that. With regards to any of the stormwater questions brought up, it is certainly the intent to have the access drive as part of the detention basin. So the volumes that would be calculated based on that would include the access drives as well as the future uses on the site that are anticipated. Now, at this point, that was one of the other questions that was brought up. We do not have other uses that are proposed on those. I think before, when you saw the PUD, Since it was the whole site, it was looking at several other uses. Many of those are certainly still potentially, could potentially happen. And generally, the detention has been sized for a worst-case scenario as far as the potential build-out of those properties. So it's sized to adequately handle all of the runoff from the entire site in not only this pond, but also a proposed pond further to the south. And all of that is part of the Eagle wetland permit that I think you have in your packet. You can at least see what was approved by Eagle for that purpose. And I think it's the applicant's desire, or I should say the property owner's desire to go with those general footprints and certainly not to exceed those. And that gets to the question of the overall property, probably one of the first things that could have been brought up. But the overall property is just short of, or about 30 acres that is currently owned by the property owner. And this site is approximately 4 acres at the northernmost end of those 30 acres. So this is just one of those, and certainly property lines would be established when the splits are made. The access road that serves this property is within an easement that would also be created and provided for that use. And we have looked at how this access road would interact with future uses. And one of the key things that I think in reviewing the access easement ordinance that was recently done, where you would not like to see cars backing out into the access drive, which I think was one of the ways that the previous plan had actually indicated that cars in this area could potentially back up into that access drive. We've taken steps in some preliminary layouts for that property to have a small island in between there. So there would be no cars backing into that access drive as currently shown in the future. And certainly appreciate Lene's pointing out the billboard on the property. I think it may show up on our topo. But I think it's also something, I think it's right here. So my understanding is that would likely be left on the property. It's not in the way of any of our grading efforts.
Can you circle that again?
Looks like a portion of it is in the new MDOT right away. They don't typically keep billboards on their property, to my knowledge.
Yeah, we'll have to review that and make sure that we have the billboard identified and in the right location. So we'll certainly take that under advisement. So I do think it's the applicant's desire to abide by the vast majority of the ordinance requirements that have been identified. We're in agreement with the other items that were raised. We have no issues with the Township Engineer's report. And appreciate any other comments or thoughts that you have that I can help clarify.
I'll let you go.
Just
Mine's
because
gonna be short.
you didn't have the fire report, so they mentioned a couple of points where they need to have at least 20 feet wide around for a fire lane, so
Okay.
just note that you'll need to correct that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm quite sure we'd be able to accommodate that requirement. I know we did have a fire access plan that was put forth at one point.
Go ahead. So I want to be very clear here. Your statement was, we're going to abide by everything except the architectural standards. And there's absolutely no reason to believe that the ownership is going to comply with the architectural standards.
Well, I think it's the applicant's position that what is provided or what they have done on other sites would comply with
Well,
the.
let me
with the
stop you
instance.
there. Other sites aren't Caledonia.
Correct.
We have a zoning ordinance. We have architectural standards that require specific items. And you're saying that the applicant has put forth what they want and aren't willing to follow the zoning ordinance requirements for the architectural standards.
Well, I'm not an architect. I'll admit that.
You made the statement. I just want to be clear that you stated that they put forth what they want and aren't going to meet the standards that we have.
It's my contention that what is proposed and what is shown here, that would be examples from other sites, but would be also proposed on this site, do comply with your standards.
Let me think how to word this. CMU block has dimensions. I'm looking at this. Masons put that up as CMU block. Doesn't look like brick to me. This, on the other hand, looks like brick. We have a south side that does not meet the requirements of breaking up a large face, which again, you stated this is how they want it, with no changes. I
That is
want to be
correct.
very clear that the applicant does not want to meet our ordinance on the south side of the building either.
To the extent that the deficiency on the south side could be addressed, we could certainly have a discussion with the planner to that regard.
I'm seeing and I've heard basically a lot of, we'll work it out. That's, our job is to not work it out. Our staff's job is not to work it out. Your job is to provide a packet that we can approve without working it out later. I know that's not the first time I've ever said that, and I may have said it previously to you as well regarding this. Unless other people have difference of opinion on the standards regarding the architectural standards. Do we think it meets it? I mean, I want you to be very clear when you hear me say this and answer the question. They are not willing to meet the standard of the ordinance. On the south side, on the clear glass, on the CMU.
I think the applicant believes that what has been put forth meets the intent of the ordinance. And I think they believe that this site, or their building standard is of high quality and would be, and would meet the standard.
I think they're mistaken in their interpretation, and they don't get to interpret that, we do.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll make a motion then. All right. I make a motion to deny item 6A for reasons stated as an incomplete packet and not meeting our standards for the ordinances.
I will support.
Motion by Curtis, support by McLean. Any discussion?
I would prefer a table in this circumstance, because if it did come back with improvements that met the ordinance, there would be a path forward, where my understanding of denial is, I don't know, there's a period of time, I think, until you can apply again. Can you walk us through that process?
Yeah, it's a 1 year pause unless they submit something that's revised, a change plan.
Okay.
Something different.
I mean, couldn't have made it very clear in my questioning. Like, you believe it meets the standard, and as my commissioner next to me, it's not theirs, it's ours.
we're certainly willing to work with township officials to make it, so.
I feel better. It sounds like they can resubmit with materials that meet the ordinance and maybe not have the 1 year time off.
Yeah, as long as, let me find the exact language
Be good.
and read it for you.
Little thing on the cover, just in case you do come back, is we have Charter, not Comcast here.
I'll make a note of that.
Spectrum nowadays.
Yeah.
So the ordinance does say that they can appeal a decision of the site plan to the zoning board of appeals. Might take me a minute, folks. I have not memorized everything.
Another thing I didn't mention in case you do come back is I would prefer to have the sidewalk straight. I understand that you're avoiding a little bit of a wetland pocket there. But you're impacting all sorts of other wetlands throughout the site, and long-term, I would just rather have a straight pedestrian path.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the reason we did that, that was actually something that Todd Borman had recommended for us to do.
Was that before you got a wetland permit or after?
In the midst of? I'm not sure, to be honest, but we can certainly take that under advisement. We could always
And then
move that, and I don't know if we'll be able to impact any further wetlands, but would have to just go through the revised permit process.
I think Todd also mentioned in his letter, we got a separate grading plan, sheet C301, that looks like it's like an 8-foot drop right adjacent to that path, so I don't know if you're building a wall or what's going on there, but, yeah.
Yeah, that was something that we were indicating we would likely, well, we'll certainly be going through MDOT procedure on that one, and discussing the grading that has to occur there and whether a wall would be necessary adjacent to the wetland.
But again, from a pedestrian safety standpoint, it might make a lot of sense to pull that away from the road, so you didn't have to have a 8-foot wall right there.
Agreed.
I did find that resubmission, section 3.43. For a period of 1 year following a decision by the planning commission, no reconsideration of the decision shall be undertaken, nor may an application for the same matter be submitted unless the planning commission in its sole discretion determines that there has been a material change in the development plans submitted or a material change in the facts and circumstances applicable to the requested special land use.
And how would we determine that? I mean, it wouldn't be on a normal, I mean, we only meet as part of our planning commission meetings. So,
Yeah, it would come back on your agenda, and kind of the first thing that you would talk about would be the material change, and the applicant would probably put something in writing as to how they believe there's been a material change.
well, this is the comment period for the commissioners right now, right?
100%. The motion is commented.
Yeah, I think it is a literal material change that we're asking for. And if that is something that the owner or the property owner is considering, then I think it would not be productive to deny it. But if they literally are not willing to make the changes and comply with the ordinance, then there's really no point in talking about it anymore. So that's I think, our discretion at this point. We've heard one one side of that, one intimation of what their intention is. So,
And that was the point of my question.
exactly.
Like, if there was willingness, the motion would have been a table.
So hearing all this discussion, are you still in the same position that you think the owners aren't gonna budge on these items that are being discussed? Or just that we can have I know this is restating what you've already asked, but one last time, just to be clear, could you let us know what you think is it worth us having another discussion or not? And without coming back with the same things again?
Yeah, I believe, we state in those terms, of course, this is what the applicant has put forth. But I'm willing to go back to them and say, can we make any material changes if their desire is strong enough to want to be on the site? And, I can't speak for them here, but that's certainly something that they would like to entertain, I'm sure. So, if the motion is altered to table, at least it would give more of an opportunity for us to come back and have that discussion further with you. And I can communicate certainly with Lene too as to the owner's desire. If they come back and say, no, this is exactly what we want, take or leave it, then we can save ourselves a little bit of time. But if they're willing to make a material change, literally, then that's what we would certainly like to see, if we can have that.
All right, it's a motion on the table.
Motion on the table, we'll vote on the motion, and where it goes from there, we make another motion or not, we'll find out. Roll call. Clement.
So this is to,
Deny.
okay. No.
McLean.
Yes.
Bradshaw.
No.
Eberly.
No.
Lindsay.
No.
Cutler.
No.
Curtis votes yes. Motion does not pass.
I'd like to offer a motion that we table this and request that the applicant return with a fully compliant design. Those items discussed, noted, but, and encourage a complete reading and understanding of the requirements that we have in writing.
Support. Motion by Eberly, support by Bradshaw. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Cutler.
Yes.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Eberly.
Yes.
Bradshaw.
Yes.
McLean.
Yes.
Clement.
Yes.
Curtis votes yes. Motion to table passes.
Thank you for your time.
Item 6B, site plan review, LAD/US golf carts for a 29,250 square foot retail warehouse and service use located at 9670 Cherry Valley, parcel 412328 300 040. Ms.
All
Lene.
right. There are a few items on this case to kind of wade through as a planning commission. A little bit similar to Drive and Shine in a way, but the first being whether this is a big box use or not. Because if it is a big box use, then, that has to be corrected before anything else. You can't move forward. The way our ordinance defines big box is that it's larger than 20,000 square feet. When viewed from above, it looks like a box. That the store has very large off-street parking, offers a wide variety of merchandise for sale, and may provide some services as well. It may offer merchandise at discounted prices. A big box store may also be referred to as a superstore, supercenter. It's frequently part of a national or regional retail merchandise company with multiple store locations. So I did some research. Obviously, this looks like a box from above. It's bigger than 20,000 square feet. They sell a variety of merchandise related to golf carts, parts, lawn equipment. They have a 9,300 square foot service area. They are a national retailer. They do have several locations. I did have some email correspondence with a representative because I noted on their website that they provide servicing of turf areas, so sports fields, golf courses. They also do repairs of golf equipment, lawn equipment, and they also rent that type of equipment in other locations. They did say that here they would not be renting, but I want to make sure that that's on the record, because if it is, and that's a special land use, they'd have to come back for that. And also that if they were doing some sort of service enterprise from this kind of a light industrial contractor type of use, and that would not comply with our permitted uses in the C2 overlay. So that's sort of a big item, I think, that
Can we
needs
just
to
stop?
be
Let's
discussed.
address
Yeah,
that one
yeah,
before,
let's do
because
that.
anything beyond that hinges on, on the first one, so.
Yeah.
Not a public hearing, correct?
Not a public hearing,
Not
just.
special land use.
Nope, not if it's just solely retail with kind of an accessory service. But you'll look at I asked the applicant to do a diagram to kind of detail out where the various locations are of the sales office is on the second floor. They have a showroom up front. And then the majority of the back of the building is for parts and servicing of the golf carts and lawn equipment. They also provided a letter dated June 23rd about the building use and classification.
So, just out of curiosity, is Steve Plackmeyer here?
Yeah.
Just want to clarify something on you'll have to come out to the microphone or I'll get yelled at. In your email exchange with, and by the way, did I say your name correctly?
Yes, you did.
All right. You said, no, we do not offer that service in Michigan. Would that service ever be contemplated in Michigan? The maintained courses and fields, I was trying to follow the email. Just trying to understand your turf operation and what managed sports
the
fields
turf-
and golf courses is.
We
Maintain and
don't,
manage.
we do not envision doing that. And what happened, so just a little bit of background. So US Golf Cars has been there at that site. There's two parcels and it's operated mostly on where the buildings are. It's been there and operated where it is strictly kind of, it's golf car. We sell golf cars, we sell them used and new. It's like a little mini auto dealership type setup. And the majority of our customers are golf courses. We made an investment with a company, Lads. We've got two owners that, myself and my partner, we picked up another partner. His company was Lads. And he does the same thing that US Golf Cars does, but he also, instead of just doing golf cars, he sells turf equipment to golf courses. And it's a commercial line. It's not sold to retail. It's Jacobson equipment, and it's just a nice complement to the golf course because we're going to the golf courses to begin with, and we also then sell Jacobson, Smithco, other blowers, and that type of thing. So we have run out of space for the ability to do the service side of it, and we needed to put the equipment, the turf equipment indoors. So a lot of that space that's shown parts, it's really not parts, it's parts and turf equipment. And we're gonna our plan is to continue to do the business that we've been doing there for 35 years, but to move it to where we've got a nice showroom. We got a nice showroom there, and which, if you go into our existing building, it's just been added on, and it's not the nicest display, and we wanted to really organize it so that we can be more efficient with how we conduct our business. The business down in Tennessee, which is in Memphis, that's their headquarters area, they have what they call athletic turf services,
Yeah.
where they do parks and athletic fields, and they mow lawns and stuff, and we don't see ourselves getting into that business. That, you gotta have, you know, we have to have a much more of a major metropolitan area to offer that type of service.
Okay, I think
So-
that answers my question there. I'm just gonna do a quick, thank you. I'm just gonna do a quick poll, like big box, yes or no type of deal. Cutler?
Yes.
Well, clarify the question, please.
In your mind, do you
Is
think
this-
it meets a big box?
I don't think so, in my opinion.
I don't think so either because of, it's not a lot of retail, it's parts and service.
I agree.
I would also say, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, this feels to me like, like a car dealership almost, versus what I would picture a big box to be.
Right.
Yeah, when I think of big box, I think of a much higher traffic volume than I would expect they're gonna have, and just a lot more coming and going. This is not, I can't imagine, you know, like Black Friday, they're gonna have 1,000 cars out there. It's just,
They may have 1,000 golf carts on Black Friday.
well, they might.
Right.
That time of the year, you
Oh,
might.
All right. Yeah, we don't have, you know, checkout lanes, we don't have retail shelving. We don't have a lot of trucks coming in with, a lot of merchandise where we're seeing how much, I mean, big box are all about volume, right? That's not our business,
Yes.
side of it.
Perfect. I just wanted to, you know, gauge that reaction because that's like step one of this
Yeah.
packet and,
That's very helpful, just to have the distinguishing factors that you have in your determination for the record.
yeah, I mean, not to date myself at all, but this reminds me of the Caledonia tractor that was the original building. Not that I ever went in there when I was a kid.
And there aren't rentals happening, is that right? Rental?
We do rent, I mean, well, two golf courses, we rent golf cars.
But
We deliver them to
more
them,
in
they don't
terms-
come and pick them up.
More in terms of a lease.
As leased, they're leased.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
not like daily rentals.
No, they're not,
people come-
no, they're
Yeah.
leases.
So right now, they
They're
don't
leased.
have a lot, it was kind of tongue-in-cheek, not tongue-in-cheek, about 1,000 golf carts there at Thanksgiving. When golf season ends in Michigan, they will have more golf carts stored there.
Yeah,
And then in the spring, it looks like it is now. Not as many golf carts. So, all right,
Thank you.
why don't you have a seat?
Okay.
Ms. Lene, why don't you move
Okay.
on to the other items, knowing
Yeah,
that a majority of us.
thank you. Yes, a majority in the straw poll. A couple things I want to point out, and I do want to let you know that I shared with the applicant, even though they didn't make any changes, I did share with them a copy of our sub-area plan that was adopted into our master plan, which shows Main Street from the village of Caledonia, the vision would be that that Main Street connect through, which is exactly where on the site plan, the applicant has their entry drive, their new combined entry drive. So for what it's worth, that's not necessarily achieving the vision of our Main Street connection through the property. The master plan is a vision. It's not law or ordinance, but it is vision. Someday if that road were to continue through, maybe there's a way to right now perhaps modify the location of the retention pond or make it smaller somehow so that if one day in 10, 15 years, we did see a road through there, that wouldn't be in the way. But sort of an aside to talk about. In terms of setbacks, the use complies with the setback standards. Traffic circulation, other than what I just mentioned related to our master plan and our vision for the sub-area, meets the ordinance. They're also closing one of the drives and relocating it, so that improves the circulation. There would need to be a driveway permit from the road commission. The applicant has not provided a pedestrian pathway from the sidewalk, or they did provide a pedestrian pathway, but they did not provide one to the building to the south. So I think that's going to be a common theme, is that while there is compliance with many of the items on the building to the north, they are sort of touching both properties, and this would be the time that we could bring both of these properties into compliance with our zoning standards, specifically for landscaping and sidewalks and accessibility. This area is near our non-motorized path on Cherry Valley. So I could see how this could make a future connection to that pathway network. The township engineer has provided comments on stormwater. In terms of landscaping, we do note that they're showing landscaping in the easement area. And our ordinance says that landscaping needs to be outside of the easement, which means that the building or the parking might need to move to the east a little bit so that the green belt can be achieved. We also note that the green belt could extend to the property to the south. Perhaps some landscaping could be added. I realize that some of that might be within the right-of-way, though. In terms of screening, all at-grade mechanicals shall be fully screened. That's a condition of approval. We did have lighting plans in the digital packet. They weren't provided in the print packet. We also don't have a lighting spreadsheet, so that's a condition of approval. We don't see any of the outdoor retail areas on the plans, and we want to have that located on this plan set. Past practice, we've asked for outdoor sales and storage to be shown on plans. Item I for utilities, all utilities should be placed underground. That's been added as a condition. Signage would have to comply with our overlay standards. It does appear that the site might be overparked, and since these uses sort of overlap, I'm wondering if if they need this amount of parking, or is some of the parking going to be used for display and sales? You already mentioned that you don't have a lot of people coming in. You're different than a big box. You don't have the same traffic generation. I realize that you've parked it according to our ordinance, but we can offer flexibility if you do not need that amount of parking. And that might help with reducing the size of that stormwater area as well. So I think that's something we're open to discussing. And then in terms of building and site amenities, we do have architectural plans, once again, similar to the previous case, CMU block. It's not an approved material. It needs to have the size of the brick or resemble stone. Also, the vinyl panels are not an approved material. Metal panels are not an approved material in our overlay. The glass, it is not described, so we're not sure if it's clear and non-tinted and non-reflective. The percent of glass meets our ordinance, but we're just not sure what the type of glass is being offered here. Rooftop mechanicals, we are not seeing any floor plan or rooftop plan to know what the mechanicals might be. Certainly those also need to be obscured by a parapet and not visible from the road. The storefront elevations and blank walls, the applicant is showing blank walls. That doesn't meet our ordinance. The storefront, the architectural materials shall wrap around the building sides. We didn't find that that standard was met either. We need to see a detail of the trash enclosure. So quite a few things with the architectural standards. I did speak with Mr. Dixon on the phone. They did share that they're willing to be, work with us and be, adhere to our standards. So I think that's something that they're willing to talk about tonight since he's here as well. So the big things would be the lighting spreadsheet, the landscaping, and how we want to, whether we want to encourage the applicant to meet the landscaping and the sidewalk requirement for both properties. Since in a way they're touching both properties, they are proposing to do a lot line adjustment. But in a way, both of these properties are being impacted. The parking, I think, can be discussed, as well as the architecture, as I mentioned earlier. And then condition number 12 is an error on my part, so that should be removed.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah,
That's my original question.
yeah. So that's, those are kind of the big things for us, similar to the previous case, I guess.
Hi, Todd. I thought you were retiring.
I was done.
Don't tell my wife. Good evening, Todd Stivey with Excel Engineering. I'm going to hit the site stuff a little bit first. Then I'm going to invite Ken Dixon up to talk about architecture. Regarding landscaping, there is a, I don't know how wide it is, 25-foot wide utility easement. That's what we're seeing here, this dash line. And if we look at the landscape plan, there are some trees these trees here, those are probably 2 to 3 feet into that easement. So we can, I guess my suggestion is that we can push the whole site back about 3 feet. We'll take care of that. But we do have a 25-foot dimension from the sidewalk, not the right-of-way, the sidewalk to the parking. But yeah, I can see if that's a requirement. We'll make that adjustment. That shouldn't impact anything considerably on the site. So that should bring the landscaping into compliance. So that's I think we'll take care of that item. We have been going through the engineer's comments. One of them was regarding fire chief's review, I guess. He wanted to see a hydrant on site, so we did. This isn't reflected on your plan. We just printed this out today, actually. But, so we did add the hydrant where they wanted to see it, which is in this location. We'll be bringing a main back to here, and then we move the fire protection and water service to this corner. It used to be coming in up through here. So we'll comply with that. We did add the oil sand separator to the sanitary lateral. This is the service area, so that's where that belongs. And then we did also, what you'll see on this one, and it's not reflected on yours, is there was a requirement to bring the sidewalk connection from the building to the sidewalk. So we're proposing that we put that right here, which will bring us into the site right near the front entrance. We do I know it would be up to you whether you think this constitutes a change to the existing site. But, so the driveway currently sits here, so it's offset from Main Street. And we're proposing to eliminate that driveway and line it up with East Main. And then that would become a shared driveway between the two sites. And that's what this easement is for, the formal shared driveway agreement. Now, if you do require that, if you do require a sidewalk across here, obviously that's a considerable addition. It's like almost twice as much as what we're putting in for the new site, and landscaping. You can see, I put a dashed line in here, maybe you can see it. It's here. To pull that same, we're gonna have the same problem with landscaping where the trees are in the easement, where the sidewalk would need to be. We'd have to remove all of this. We'd lose all of the parking, or the ability to access the parking, I guess, along the front of the building. You can see how far forward the building is relative to the existing. So we would find that, other than considerable cost, we find that a bit onerous with what the impacts that it would have on the existing site for parking. So I think we have to consider those issues as well. Yeah, the lighting plan, sorry it didn't get copied to you. Ken, I'm gonna add, Ken had the lighting plan prepared. Was it prepared by an engineer? Okay, we'll have to get that rectified, and we can get that spreadsheet included as well. Yeah, I think that's really all that I had. We mentioned, Lene mentioned that there's a property line adjustment. The property line is currently goes through these parking spaces, so we would propose to adjust that line so that the parcels will stand alone as far as where the parking is located. So that's the reason for that adjustment.
Did you want to talk about parking, or do you want somebody else to talk about parking?
Yeah, honestly, this would be customer parking. This area is behind the fence. This would be employee parking. We added these spaces here to get our numbers up to meet the ordinance. I don't really think we need these spaces, although I'm not sure the way this is maneuvering for trucks. We do have a delivery door, a dock back there. Garbage disposal is here. I'm not sure it would really reduce the paving so much, but yeah.
I think, reading possibly Miss Lene's mind, she was thinking about, do we need as much parking up front? Or am I incorrect in what you were thinking?
Yeah, parking and even employees. I just wasn't sure the extent of the repair operation.
I mean, I look at the front, right, and my eyeballs aren't so good to read the little numbers on there anymore.
37 for retail.
Thank you. That seems like a lot of parking for a non-retail operation. I just look at it and say, one row in front of the building might be enough, but it's your business. That would be, help me with the number there, Tim, 18?
There's 7 and 7, well, now there's 7 and 7, I reduced by 1 to
slide it.
But, and then there's 16 along, my eyes are good, yeah,
No, that's
16 along the frontage.
That's the number I couldn't read either, so.
Yeah. So I would have to have Steve.
It's just something I'm putting out there.
I guess what we like to do is, in the summertime too, we like to park some of our inventory out there just for display to kind of tie into what, the business that we're in. I don't know if you drive by our current location, you'll see a few of our, so it's just nice to have where we want to travel with the vehicles and the like, to have it be paved. That's one of the challenges we got with our existing site. We got gravel and we're trying to keep all the golf cars and the equipment clean. It's tough when you don't have
Yeah,
the
I
adequate, you've got to
understand.
have enough adequate.
And
So-
I think Lene brought up something as well, and that's something we've had to work hard with other folks, Tractor Supply and others, and that's outside display of merchandise.
Okay,
So we need to know where that's gonna be.
I mean, it's limited,
Not just maybe someday we'll put some golf cars out here. You'd need to designate those areas, and we have to make sure that it meets the requirements that we have in the ordinance. If there is even a allowed, Lene, can you help me with that?
Yeah, I think that is one of the questions about the outdoor sales area. Let me open up that page.
And why you're doing that, I mean, and to add to that, we have required landscaping that's going to be in front of that anyways. So it's not going to be wide open between the road and the parking area anyways. There's going to be screening of landscaping of some sort, as evidenced like PFCU just did, and
how does that work, like with if it was a car dealership, you wouldn't allow cars to be
Well, that's
Yeah.
what I was just gonna mention. We do allow automobile sales, both new and used, as permitted. And we do typically have, just like we have Komodo Motors, they do have the outdoor display area, but it
but
needs to
that's a
be.
special land use for our car dealerships, correct?
No, it's permitted in our overlay. It's a
Okay.
permitted use.
Yeah, that's what I
So
thought.
this goes back a little bit to that discussion about big box versus what you guys are doing. You're doing something that's kind of in between. But I'm not the mind of the whole planning commission, but I do know that we've had to work through this with a lot of folks. The
Yeah.
Hardware store and Tractor Supply and Circle K, they all had to have restrictions. I mean, you know what a Tractor Supply can look like.
No, we're like a car
But if
dealership.
you drive by that one, it doesn't look like any Tractor Supply you've ever seen before, because the parking lot is not full of stuff. And that's just how our ordinances have been set up in town. So I'm not saying you can't park your golf cars out there.
Right,
We
right.
just have to
We
think
just have
about.
to know.
Yeah.
I just want to give like a 5-minute pause for Commissioner McLean to pop back in here so he can be part of the discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't realize he left.
Yep.
Missed him.
He was quietly snuck out, so.
He was very good, should be stalking deer like that.
I'd like to go next. Not to the bathroom, but to speak.
Yes, please do.
Yeah,
To the north and to
Yeah,
through.
All right. We want to make sure you're part of the discussion. Okay. Sorry about that. No, that's all right. So I think we need to understand the parking and what's going on there. My idea was you could reduce the parking and then extend the path all the way down to the other end of the, not sidewalk, path. I want to be clear, right? That's a path out front, not a sidewalk.
It's 5 feet wide.
It's a sidewalk.
Come on, Monet. What's our,
We do need the 8-foot pathway.
it's an 8-foot path on that
8-foot
side
path.
of that road. Just to know, it's not a sidewalk, it's a path.
Okay, well, it's currently shown as a 5-foot sidewalk. so
Yeah, that's,
It has
we're
to
telling
be
you,
an 8-foot
asphalt
Pathway.
path.
bituminous path.
And I promise, I just want to ask 2 questions. Typically, we request cross-access agreements north and south would be super nice. I don't know if that's already on the south parcel. I mean, it looks like you're intending to do that with the north side, with the kind of bump out, like you may extend a road up there. We just want, when we do this, we always like to have cross access.
That was just intended for that last vehicle to pull out, not necessarily to extend
Yeah.
north.
But I would be interested in having cross-access agreement on the north lot and the south lot. And has there been any thought, I know you're moving the one drive up and making it a shared drive. Has there been any thought, and again, I don't know if this will, I can see where it wouldn't impact, but abandoning the existing south entrance and having all the traffic flow through at the traffic light instead of having that south entrance?
No,
Just thinking from a traffic flow standpoint, putting everybody at the traffic light instead of having people making left turns there on the southbound M37 right at a light. So that's just what I have on here. Mr. Bradshaw, I know you had some items.
Yeah, I wanted to, while we were talking about the west side of the parking lot, I had one more thing. I got way down into the weeds and found page 156 out of 354 in our zoning ordinance. Talks about the parking lot positioning needs to be 90 feet from the outside edge of the nearest continuous lane of M37. And I think as drawn, you might be 70-ish, so I don't know that you can have the parking to the west anyway, based on the ordinance.
Sorry, what page was that?
156.
What section?
Section 12A.6.
12A.6.
Is that the C2 section though, and not the overlay?
He's on his phone. He gets a pass.
Yeah. That is the case for the C2 lands, the highway, commercial at the interchange.
Okay,
Um,
so that doesn't
it's-
extend down here?
It doesn't because we're in the overlay.
Okay. Yeah, sure enough, this 12A is highway commercial district, so that doesn't apply here because we're always, I didn't know if M37 was the highway or what.
Yes,
This
it's
is the Cherry Valley overlay, correct?
correct. And because we're in the part of the Cherry Valley overlay where we have the narrow lots, landscaping and setbacks are revert back, the dimensional setbacks for the lot revert back to the C2 district. And landscaping shall be determined by the planning commission.
You do bring up a good point. Do you have an additional item? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be pretty quick. So again, back to the sub-area plan and the longer range vision of what does the township and the village's, kind of business core become. I appreciate what you want to do on the site, but I'm trying to see the really big picture too, and how the bigger picture might benefit you on this site. Basically having the core intersection of Caledonia right here and building a 66-foot right-of-way and road through here, in my opinion, vastly increases your property value, and I think is something you should strongly consider. I worry about how tight this is and what it means for the future vision of how this whole area develops, because it's an absolute core important spot.
And back to your right-of-way, I know the ZBA, we're going to be talking about a whole lot of changes due to MDOT widening the right-of-way. And looking at I mean, we know this road's gonna get wider south of 92nd Street at some point, hopefully not too far down the road. What, I know none of us can read the MDOT magic 8 ball on what they're gonna do as far as width through there, but I'd really hate to be pushed up to the front and then have that right on the road in the future. Because that's what we're dealing with them widening the right of way, we're losing landscaping and, due to widening of the road.
I think when MDOT widens, I mean, there's mostly 60 feet of pavement here for a lot of this cross-section now. It's, if they just restriped it, they could have 5 lanes and no shoulder. So, you know, I don't envision this as becoming a boulevard like the other pieces. So I don't think it'll be anywhere near as challenging as it's been for other properties, but I do think some planning for future widening as part of, you know, these plan reviews is wise.
Yeah, we have 0 side yard setbacks in the zoning district, so, I mean, certainly you design your square box for certain configurations and flow, but it could be, I guess, it could be further to the north and shorter and move back, you know, more of a square than a rectangle. He's got 35 feet from the north property line, and you could be.
We do have drainage that needs to come through here, so, yeah.
That couldn't be buried?
It is buried.
Okay.
All right, are we done with Todd?
Yeah.
Todd's done
At
with
least I didn't say
Todd.
please. I'll let Ken come up and do his thing. Thank you.
Yeah, Ken Dixon with Dixon Architecture. I come before you a little embarrassed tonight. Totally missed the architectural standards. Your zoning ordinance tricked me in finding the actual architectural standards. When I began, I looked in the C2 zone and there wasn't any architectural standards there. Ms. Wells said, make sure you check on the architectural standards. I looked in the overlay zone, there are like 2 paragraphs, and so I thought, hey, I hit them, I got them. Little did I know, is this on the screen? So I want to stick up for myself a little here, because it's in this general sections 3.9, and it's in with construction accessory buildings, channels, and grade limits, and agricultural, and all of a sudden, boom, architectural standards. So I missed that, and I'll be straightforward with you, that was my fault. Good news, we are willing, as I told Ms. Wells, we're willing to, we're not going to be problematic here. We're working with the township to do the right thing here. So thank you for going through there and pointing out all the issues I had. And we'll just kind of go down the list of things and show, I come with kind of an updated rendering tonight, which hopes to put some concerns at ease. So Ms. Wells had indicated that CMU block, the 16 by 8, is not allowable in the zone. Completely understand that. We've changed that out to a standard brick module, the 4-inch by 8-inch by 2.5 standard veneer brick. That's what you're seeing here represented on the front of the facade. 2 tones of brick, keeping it in that natural color palette that we previously had. And those wrap the corners as well. Not for the entire building. If you've ever built with brick, it's definitely an upgrade from where we were. It's fairly expensive, so we'll be looking at maximizing that presence on the street, providing those brick facades, and then we wrap 2 bays on the south side and 1 bay on the north side, keeping that same architectural language around that side. And then we go to another material. We had metal panel before, which I don't find very offensive. It's, you know, the Falk panels that are out there now, they're 40 inches wide. They have some dimpling to them. They're fairly attractive, but if that's not allowable, again, the masonry would be a little bit too much for this project. So we're looking for a fiber cement type material, which I understand is acceptable in this district. So materiality, we've made that change. We're willing to make that to comply with the standards. Some other things, let's see, glazing was mentioned. Yeah, for sure, transparent glazing. We want to see through these windows. We want to see the golf cars. So definitely want to pursue a clear glazing for the building, a transparent. I ran the numbers. I got the calculations. They do meet the requirements for 50% on the ground floor, 25% on the second story. So I'm happy that complies. Mechanical units, I do have a 3-foot parapet on the south side, but it is a sloped roof. So at the peak here, it's 8 inches or so. We're willing to raise that up. We can also service it by ground mount units that would be screened and landscaped and whatnot. We just haven't, we're at the initial stage. We haven't designed mechanical systems for this building yet. Again, we're here to comply. If we do rooftops, we will screen them. We can provide 3D images to show different views to show that those would be screened. We don't want to fight that. We will comply. So we talked about blank walls and pilasters, windows, and architectural materials for at least 50% of the building. We are looking at pronouncing some piers, some pilasters. You kind of see this here in the image. So we're stepping out, and what this doesn't show is the brick coursing. I mean, it looks kind of plain, but at this scale, that's what it is. But if you've ever been to Ada and you've seen the brick articulation that we've done there, that would be similar. You know, putting in soldier courses, putting in banding, common bond coursing and whatnot. So it'll be a nice palette of materials. But we do, in fact, have a 4-inch step of brick material pronouncing from the lighter color of the windows and the storefronts to add some articulation of depth to that facade. And we do wrap the corners with that. We've got kind of that pier located here, and then we've got this brick also showing with projection on that wrapping of the building. We do get a little flat through here. This is where we talked about the signage going. But also we did it complicated a little bit with the front structure that we've got here. This is a little bit more modern, kind of appealing looking. It's an architectural metal. I don't know where you had mentioned vinyl, and I couldn't quite figure out where vinyl was, but vinyl was not intended anywhere on the building. If that was deemed as vinyl, we meant that to be an architectural metal, like a dry design or something like that. Dumpster details, we do have those. Those will be resubmitted. I think it was in the package or it wasn't in the package. We have it. We'll be submitting that with the package. We talked about glass, we talked about rooftop, we talked about exterior materials, we talked about the articulation of the facade, wrapping the corners, and the dumpster enclosure. So I think I'm done. And again, I apologize for missing that section. It'd be awesome if it was hyperlinked, and then when I was reading on code, it would automatically brought me there, but I didn't see it.
I've asked.
Separate chapters.
I've asked for that, so thank you for saying that out loud. I know you ran away, but does anybody have any comments that we'd like to make?
I have two. One for clarification for you, Doug. You talked about cross-access, and I think there was a question at one point about whether you're expecting cross-access to the property to the north, to the American Legion. Is that what you were looking for, or between these two properties?
I'm not asking for specifically to connect them. For sure, these two are connected.
Okay.
They intend to connect them. They said common. We're just looking for a cross-access easement. So
Correct.
it could be cross-connected. So, I don't know, somebody wants to go from the golf cart to the American Legion, they don't have to go out.
Okay.
Or, I don't remember what's south of there now.
I think I was more concerned about events at the American
Big O.
Legion, taking advantage of the parking at the golf cart place.
Yeah, we're not asking for the connection. I
Okay.
think we're just
All right.
asking for the easement.
For the easement.
guess the only question I would have would be for Renee, going back to the big box issue. In the overlay district, do we have a limit on the size of the building?
So if it were a big box, it could not be bigger than 20,000 square feet.
Okay,
But because you determined that it is not a big box, we don't have that limit.
okay.
And then on the cross-access easement, I think it would be important to, I don't know what your decision might be today. If they table and come back with all these changes to show the cross-access at the south, or at the north, the south, I think maybe we could talk about one kind of spanning where that sub-area plan road could be, such that in the future this redevelops, that easement is there. It doesn't mean that it's built anytime soon or even ever built, but it's there in reserve. Part of it's a water service anyway.
Question 2 for you.
Yes, so I'm kind of excited about a brand-new building there at that intersection. It's gonna look really nice. So my curiosity is, what's gonna happen with the old building? I'm sorry, yes.
It's just gonna be used for additional, storage and like at this point.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, thank you.
But it is important, I mean, we designed it where they are two separate parcels. And we do need, in order to be able to finance it, we gotta treat these parcels separately. And that seems like that's a future development project that
Okay.
we're hoping that you don't think that we'd have to try to do something to improve that, because whatever we do is gonna be lost in any type of future development. If you wanna see that, location develop in the future, we shouldn't put any money into it now, I don't believe. And that's kind of our thought in terms of how we're looking at it. That's why we set it up to kind of have it a separate parcel. We'd love to be able to kind of do the business on that site without trying to take too much of that property, but we don't know today, and we don't want to hinder our growth either, because we've taken on we're trying to grow the business too, and so we're kind of looking at this thing as an investment, but one that we don't have limited funds to be able to try to do it all. We'd like to just focus on trying to really make a nice improvement to the existing site.
Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, I will make a motion to table item 6B. Take into account, one of the big items is understanding that outside storage on your rendering. I really like it up by the building right there, how you show it.
It's
But
sharp.
that's not, I mean, that looks really sharp. But that's not what you were talking about, so this, when you come back, let's make sure we have I's and T's and understand everything on that. Any other comments before we get a second?
Just specific to that, the main entrance on like the site plan versus the rendering are a little bit different. And I just want to make sure that you have a clear ADA pathway to get into your building and, you know, don't have a golf cart or something in the way or a raised pedestal. So just think through that. I know some of this is still kind of conceptual.
I have a motion.
Support.
Motion by Curtis, support by Bradshaw. Any further discussion?
The landscaping, so would that, because you said it would be up to planning commission to come up with requirements. Is that something that we would do, when would that happen?
I think that if you want to discuss your vision for what landscaping looks like, I know they talked about perhaps moving the parking and the building to the east a little bit to accommodate more of that green belt, but still have the 8-foot pathway. and make sure that the, there is enough wiggle room if that road were to be, those shoulders removed and, the road change. But I would think that the way, because this is new construction, I do see that they're able to meet the overlay landscaping. We do require a berm in the front if there is parking in the front, or additional shrubs. So we want to see one or the other here. And
I just didn't want that to
Yeah.
get lost in the updated plans.
okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. There's, I'm gonna call it jail fence around the property, and, that's to keep people out. But I wouldn't mind seeing landscaping instead. This is kind of almost industrial or warehouse type use in the back. Certainly, you've got your best models out front, and you probably have ones to match it in the back of the yard, but I don't know that we need to see 800 of the same model from the road. So personally, I would be fine with requesting some additional landscaping on the parcel to the south in what's grassed area currently. I don't know that I want to make them modify their existing parking lot, but I think that's a reasonable middle ground.
It's like a mall, party up front, business in the back.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion? Great point, thank you. All right, the motion is to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes to table. Work with Ms. Linne, as always, and we'll get there.
Thank you.
We have no unfinished business. Public comment period extended up to 5 minutes. If anybody would like to talk for 5 minutes. Seeing none, we'll close that. Commissioner comments. Do you want to talk about that now, Linne, or in the correspondence and staff updates?
Correspondence is fine.
Anybody, commissioner comments? Welcome, Mr. Clement.
Yeah, I was gonna say, thanks for having me. I think.
Correspondence and staff updates, Ms. Linne.
We do have a meeting on the 21st. I believe that's the date, yes. And it is Patterson Place for their site condominium. So that you should be familiar with that. And then I did just hear from Tower Pinkster. They're the agent for the Caledonia Public Schools and the signage. And they want to come back to talk to the Planning Commission about why they would like more signs. But they asked about that for tonight, but they didn't have any updated plans and weren't really ready. So I said we could put them on the agenda, but I still haven't seen updated plans.
Start time.
Oh, we should talk about this.
Yeah.
So, the township board is discussing starting their meetings at 6 p.m. I don't know if a final decision has been made, but I wanted to bring that up for the planning commission if that is something that you would want to consider. I mean, sometimes your schedule doesn't allow that, and certainly we don't need to make the change, but other communities are looking at starting a little earlier for the public.
The ZBA, we start at 6 now.
ZBA 6 as well.
But, I mean, if it's a hardship, it doesn't have to be 6, maybe 6:30, could be any number, but Monet brought it up to me and I said, sure, let's talk about it and see if anybody's offended by it.
So we talked about it at the board level, and I think I was the only one that even responded, but I think I'm also the only one that still has school-aged kids. So sometimes, if my wife is traveling especially, I've got to make dinner and then sometimes run on the gymnastics or dance or whatever, and then try to get them back home and get here. And that's a lot harder to do by 6 than it is 7. And maybe I think I'm the only one, and if there's a strong consensus that you would rather do it at 6, I'm cool with that, but I might have a few more conflicts if that's the case, that's all.
Would
However, you could get to hockey on time.
That's true. It's a very good point.
Hockey's still at midnight or whatever.
It's a poll, 6:30. I mean, I'm just floating it out. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously it's better than 6, less
Well-
than 7.
And I think more importantly, we probably should consider what's good for the public, because, 6 out of 7 commissioners, we're still gonna have people here to make a good decision. So if we think the public is much more likely to come at 6 than 7, then I think we should definitely do it, but I don't.
I mean, if I was to ask why is it at 7, I'm afraid the answer would be, it's always been at 7.
Yes.
No one has a good reason. I honestly, I probably have a reason when everybody used to go to the office and,
Mhm.
9 to 5 jobs and that type of thing.
Or the agricultural, we don't have to decide tonight. Maybe it's something to just think about or talk to your neighbors too and others that you might know,
How often do you get public comment?
It was late tonight.
It depends on what's on the agenda.
Okay,
There are times when there's a lot of people here.
okay.
But they're gonna be here whatever time we
whatever
have the
time it
meeting,
is.
because
Yeah.
they wanna say their piece.
I mean, if it's a Dollar General, it's gonna be packed.
Yeah, yeah.
If
Right, makes
it's
sense.
a new apartment building, it's gonna look like this.
Got it. I'd probably be in the same boat. I mean, I don't wanna do it for me either, so 6 is fine, 6:37. I've got little ones too, but, it is what it is. I mean, I'll be here either way, so.
Yeah, I'm agnostic. I don't have little kids at home anymore, so
Aren't you retired?
I am.
Just calling it out, because it just happened not that long ago.
Another benefit, if it was earlier, should we have, a really long 2.5 or 3 hour meeting, our brains might be functioning a little bit better at
Yes.
6:30 versus,
And I've talked about it, I need to dig a little bit deeper into the rules and if we have to change our, the rules we operate by to, have a limit of discussion of 45 minutes on an item that can be extended by us, but that way we don't end up with 2-hour-long discussions that we all kind of have an idea they don't meet the requirements or aren't ready for us.
Yeah.
I just don't know how to do that procedurally at
Yeah.
this point in time.
I think you're doing a good job trying to give our applicants feedback that their plans should be closer, and it's, check, 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 versus we shouldn't have to do a full plan review when they're here, so.
Please reference any applicant to this video.
I will. Please, and no, we try.
All right, no other correspondence or staff update stuff?
Motion
No,
to adjourn?
Second?
Motion by Bradshaw, support by Everly. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
We could start at noon and have lunch catered.
Why not?
Full nap time.
I'm retired.